So over the past 24 hours, things might not look that interesting because, well, prices have kind of stabilized and we haven't really been doing too much, right? We saw that crazy recovery pump about a day ago, and after that, it's just been a lot of fake news kind of moving around. I mean, one of the fakest news pieces going around was with regards to CNN. Well, actually, Trump posted fake news CNN together with the failing New York Times have teamed up in an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history. The nuclear sites in Thingy are completely wrecked. Both the Times and CNN are getting slammed by the public. So that is, of course, the president talking about some very, very interesting matters. And, well, CZ is saying that's fake news. But no, I don't want to talk about that for too long because fake news I don't think is worth giving that much attention to. All you got to sometimes do is let people know it's out there to make people judge on their own and then move on. I think that's literally the best way to describe it because, well, a little bit earlier we also had CZ saying this to the public. Some fake news is spreading around, most likely seeded by a competitor. The original news articles have been deleted after we informed them. Please verify with official sources before believing in any fake news. FUD 4. And it's obviously about either CZ or Binance. I don't even know exactly what the news is, but nor do I really care. What I think was interesting, and this was in my own book the most important post. I mean, if I had to name like top 10 influential people in crypto ever, I think CZ would be at least in my top 3. And from that angle, when he literally states this, if you sold the dip, you need to unfollow the weak minds and follow right people. Well, then I kind of see that as a very, very big deal. I kind of see that as if you sold this bottom, you should be ashamed of yourself. Well, you should be ashamed of yourself. But most importantly, you should think about what you're going to do in next scenarios if we ever get to a price like this again. Because like I was describing before, there's a nice little trading competition going on, at least it's starting tomorrow. If you also want to join in, you can check out the link down below. I've posted a link a little bit down below, like right here, for example, to 𝗏𝗏. You can check it out if you also are interested in trading, because right now I've got some juicy trades open. We have ourselves the 500K XRP trade. These two were just, intermediary because we wanted to take a little bit of advantage of the rise back up, because Ethereum at 2100 is just so freaking juicy. I couldn't let this slip. Virtuals is open for a long time. I still am not completely happy with this, but I guess we could have actually averaged our price in, because Virtuals, if I'm looking at it right now, let's just quickly go take a look. Virtuals over the last few weeks was actually significantly lower, right? It went to 44 cents. I could have actually nicely averaged in, gotten my average price to maybe even 80 cents or lower. And at this point, we had a pretty good profit, but I just didn't care for Virtuals too much. I just wanted to kind of let that sit and just wait a few months until it is back in profit. Whereas XRP, we are actively buying right now. It's back to 500K, the trade. Bitcoin, I'll also actively buy. It's a 15x trade, though it's kind of riskier. And these are 3x because I could keep them open forever. And I just basically explained a nice idea of if you're thinking of buying spot and you want to buy, for example, $7,000 worth, I think it's quite easy to just 3x leverage it with, for example, 6,000 and actually be able to buy 18,000 with a little bit of money extra for adding to margin. But it also depends on how much extra capital you have in dollars, for example, if you really had to buy that dip. Like I said, though, for Virtuals, it's kind of a nice risk reward. I mean, as of this point, right, the bottom that we were able to buy slightly off, but from the bottom to the top is like 50%. And if you take a look at XRP, from the swing low, right, so from this bottom all the way towards the local top at $3.40 is also roughly 50%. But then this happened over like half a year, whereas Virtuals hype happened in like 4 or 5 days. I just kind of feel as if this is a very, very easy trade to take. If we're just expecting it to go back to its recent high, that's already 50%. If we are able to take that with a little bit of leverage, right now we are up, like you can see, 30%. We could be up significantly more because obviously that in that case is 50% times 5. But I still perhaps think we are going to be able to add to this trade if things start going a little bit worse. And I wouldn't be too dissatisfied if it does. Because still at the end of the day, right, we expect things to slowly but surely move upwards and probably have that end of the year pump somewhere. I mean, I still have my target set at 200, 250, something like that, K. Maybe around August, maybe around September or October of this year. I mean, if you look at it from a weekly or monthly perspective, sometimes you get dissatisfied because, well, things are not moving the right direction, right? And that's actually mostly maybe if you look at it from a daily perspective, just short term and you're zooming in. But like I always say, if you zoom out, you really start seeing the bigger picture, not from a few weeks, but a few years, you start to realize that it always works in the exact same way. And all you got to do is just be able to hold through with it. And that's also why right now Pompliano, if you do know, maybe you don't, Anthony Pompliano, a very well-known Bitcoin figure, he's basically started a new company just to buy more Bitcoin as treasury. There's a lot of companies now doing that. And the main reason they do is because it just works, right? The idea behind it is you just buy this asset and it goes up. Theoretically speaking, it's the same as a passive hedge fund that doesn't do anything, it just buys the S&P. It would be kind of weird though, because you could do it yourself and pay less fees, right? So why would you? With Bitcoin, it's kind of similar, but as of this point, it does work, maybe because some of them don't like to be exposed to it and like to have a middleman or something along the sorts, or maybe they like it to be actively managed and they're fine with paying the fee. But then again, if the whole idea is just buying Bitcoin, I guess what's the whole point? Why would you actually go for that? Well, there's some benefits to it. But in general, for the people themselves, if those companies are doing that on a large scale, why would they? Well, because they know they can probably make a ton of money, even just over the next few months, over the next few years. And I personally think if you are in a position where you've got a lot and you just want almost the guaranteed results, you stick with Bitcoin and top tier coins, but mostly Bitcoin. If you want to kind of beat that advantage, that's again where we change from being Bitcoin treasury, just having it all there, to coins that have the potential to break out and do better. And again, XRP, Solana even, Ethereum, but Ethereum's kind of a crappy one recently. But hey, a lot of these coins, Solana, XRP, Ethereum, they all have basically 50% to go towards their all-time high, whereas Bitcoin is basically at an all-time high level. If you're talking about it from a risk reward, right, and thinking with profit in mind, I don't think it's stupid to choose an altcoin over BTC. Even though, again, if you already have a lot and you're just kind of wanting to beat inflation by a good margin with the potential for another 2x or so in a half a year, then BTC is nice. But if you're wondering for that 5x, for that 7x, for that 10x, you're not going to find it right there in this season. It's going to take maybe 5 years, something like that, maybe 10 years. You're going to go lower, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, whatever. If you're looking for even higher numbers, you go down lower. But there's also the potential that it doesn't even happen because it goes to zero, which is why you diversify, right? Why you don't put everything into one basket. Having said that, the bots, they're still running. Like I told you guys before that if you just consistently buy a minus 50% or more, you most likely will just beat the rewards curve that we expect to see, the expected value. We just beat it by a good margin. But generally speaking, my lamp just died, you still, so to continue on, like I told you guys before, if you always buy it at minus 50%, if not more, and again, for this 10K challenge to $1 million, we're not able to do that. But in general, right here, for example, XLM, we should be adding at these levels. Well, I guess we could have added significantly lower though at minus, you can't see, at minus 80% right here. Right now on the way back up, that would have resulted in us being only down, maybe like 20%, something like that, instead of right now almost 50. And the same thing applies to almost every single one of these. Right now, 𝗵𝗵, for example, we should be adding as things are bad because it decreases how wrecked you seem to be. And over time, we don't mind getting all these positions to large sizes. We just would prefer to do it either instantly. For example, let me show you with the Bitcoin and XRP main bots. We don't have to ever buy in for these again, probably, because the probability of this Bitcoin bot getting back to a loss is quite small, right? So the whole idea is to get to that point either by buying nicely, right, by getting a bit lucky with the timing, or by making so much in grid profits that it's hard for it to get back into a heavy loss. A little bit of a loss we don't mind because that's again where it buys the whole way down and you make a ton of the grid profits. It's mostly the the minus 70s, the minus 90s or whatever percent. We don't like to see this, for example. This is perfect, right? A little bit of a loss, because ultimately, the price that we bought at was higher than the price that's right now. But since that happened only a month and a half in, right, so not at the start, we actually are able to out-profit in grid the loss that we made on the unrealized. That is the whole goal. The goal is to keep this over for the next few months, the next few years, and the amount of profit you'll make throughout that time is probably going to outdo almost any other sort of position. The only thing that can beat it is a straight up long position. But at that point, like I've told you before with the trades here, for example, on Bluefin, the problem is if you go down significantly, it's not buying actively. You can manually, which is of course what we are doing, but the bot is beating you most of the time by just making sure it automatically buys and sells, but specifically just buys as the price starts going lower. So if you are thinking of keeping it open for a very, very long time and you don't do crazy sizes, I think these bots might be significantly easier. If you want to do really, really large size and you don't like it to be adding as prices go down lower, you just want to be in for what you're in for and you don't want to think about it too much. Even though, again, with this actual investment, the amount that it's putting in instantly is less, right? For example, this is only 150,000 XLM long. So just think about it from that perspective. But ultimately, they're both fine. If you also want to use the bots, I've got a couple of links to these different bots down below, or you can just make your own by watching this tutorial right here. And there's a link right there where you get $100 for just signing up, but also Bluefin or whatever. If you want to sign up, links are down below. And I think that's it for right now, because the market, it really is not doing too much if you start thinking about it. It could be way crazier. It's not. But this just shows to me another opportunity for buying that freaking dip. You might think right now prices are already back to the sky-high freaking moon. But really, when you think about it, they're back to where they were like, what, 3 days ago, something like that, a few days ago? We really are not back to the glory or anything of that sort, right? XRP, for example, is actually still continuing downwards. We've still yet to break through. But I believe the moment that it does this time around, it could be a very, very interesting one because we're getting closer and closer to the end of the cycle. And that I mean in the perspective of, at the end of the cycle, you find the altcoin season. We're getting closer and closer towards it. The amount of time you have for scooping up dips and buying at $2, like I always say for XRP, it's almost lost. Do as you will. That's my thoughts on the matter. Not financial advice, not political advice, not anything like that. That's about it for this little crypto update. I'm just buying that frickin' dip like there's no tomorrow. I don't really care too much about what anybody else says. And that's about it.